absolutely critical you're tied into all your competitors for the information flow to see what to do and what to not to do, what to continue to do, what to dump. And to be at the same service level, quality level, because the service and quality are not competitive items. Our real competitors that we get off this list, now we contact them and see everything else they do. Not only what they're reporting under this HDS number, other HDS number, dollar amounts, addresses, phone numbers, all sorts of information about our competitors.
So you could see if Target was like ordering more pieces of a certain type of glass or from the HDS through the trade.
Right. So you start tapping into all this information. And remember, what's all this about? This is all about when you're talking to suppliers overseas, you're having conversations about all this stuff. Yeah. So, which shows them your passion, that shows them the horse to bet on. All importers know you'll show up in the directory of U.S. importers if you're an importer. Some care. So the ones that care will go to their customs broker, who I'll introduce to you in detail next week, go to their customs broker and say, I don't want to show up in the directory of U.S. importers. So the customs broker will put the customs broker's name in the to order box on the bill of lading, being highly technical here. But what happens in effect is when the Journal of Commerce gathers this data, what the Journal of Commerce ends up with is the name of a customs broker in here instead of an importer in here.
And that's okay?
That's okay. Nothing against that. But what this does for you is if this is your HDS number and a certain customs broker name shows up in here, you know this customs broker has an expertise in this HDS number. Therefore, you should use that customs broker too, just as somebody else is. So not only do you do everything else the same as everybody else, you start using the same customs brokers and all that. So it's a good way to bird dog which customs broker you should be using. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so the number 6 is Thomas Register, which you can do online. It's a directory of everything made or distributed in the United States. And here's where you check in on getting bids on the United States. You put in there glassware, and it gives you 500 companies that are making glass in America. And then they even have a little computer-aided design module so you can rough draft what you're talking about. You can burst transmit via email to all 500 companies that ask for a request for bid to have your glass made. And then you start winnowing from the United States side, because ultimately you are going to check, as I said the first night, having it made in the United States versus overseas. But more often than not, we find it's a better deal overseas, even though the price is higher, and you remember why. You compare the offer from overseas versus the offer from the United States, compare the two. Which one will I make money doing? And that's the one I take. And more often than not, small business level, United States, that happens to be America, or overseas now, currently. But things may be changing. There was this thing called the gold standard. Then up to 1913, we went on this Federal Reserve System with the gold standard still in there. That's why you still have things called silver certificates you can find and gold certificates, which is currency. That shortly thereafter, there was a world war. Then there was a boom cycle and a bust cycle. And then the United States government confiscated everybody's gold, because you still had gold coins at that time. Then you couldn't own gold until the 70s. After World War II, they had this Bretton Woods agreement that lasted for 30 years, which kept us from expanding and inflating the economy. It kept us from being able to fight a war in Vietnam and the Great Society welfare state, because what was happening is the deal was if we inflated too much, the French, in effect, they were the ones that forced the issue, came back with all these inflated dollars, started buying all of our gold at a fixed price. Fort Knox started emptying out. So Nixon closed the gold window. And then inflation took off again because we couldn't export the inflation and the French weren't hedging it. So inflation took off in the 70s, and we pulled out of Vietnam, and the welfare state stopped growing anyway for a while. But inflation kicked in. Then we couldn't export the inflation. It stayed in the United States until the late 70s. Jimmy Carter lost the election, part of that reason. Reagan brought in Volcker, who let the interest rates go up to 21%, which killed the inflation, and a lot of other things. Interest rates went as high as 21%. Gold shot up to 800. So everybody, it kind of wiped the slate clean, everybody started going again. Then the bonds people, the other side of the deal, is not stocks and inflation, everything going up. Then the bonds became more valuable. Stocks are equity, bonds are debt. So it's the reverse of the deal. Masters of the Universe of the 80s. Then that started falling apart when Greenspan came in and changed the game in 87. There was the crash in 87. So he reversed and started inflating again, and then we had a dot-com bubble. Then that started to fall. And then what happened there was Greenspan sent out something like 1,300 economists to study the real estate market in America. And shortly thereafter, there was this real estate bubble. And then that's busting right now, and it's all kind of coming apart. But that's just a backdrop. With the inflation, trying to control it and all that, by coming off a gold standard, what happens? Okay. But what happened? Starting in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, everything in America gets bigger. The houses get bigger. The cars get bigger. The portions of food gets bigger. Friends of mine who've been smoking marijuana since the 60s say that the dosage is getting bigger. That other friends who are crackheads telling me the dosage there is getting massive. For even though the amount seems to be the same, it's getting everything and everywhere gets bigger and bigger. One of the most profitable things in the United States is mini storage. We're buying more and more. The shopping carts are getting bigger. The Walmarts are getting bigger. The hospitals are getting bigger because we get more medicine. We're consuming more and more and more. And everything we have to carry it all, to store it all, is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So all this is huge.
So scary.
And what's happening is the Chinese were willing to go on for about 10 years, but they're saying no. After the Olympics, it's going to be forget about it. So right now, we're all living it probably in America twice, 3 times, supported by the rest of the world. 3 times what we need to consume and all that. And that's under the Hamiltonian system of national greatness, which is what's been operating for the last 70, 80 years in America. But it's coming undone right now. So it can collapse back to we're all going through about 1/3 of what we're going through right now, which will be wonderful. I mean, it'll still be great, still wine and a loaf of bread and a Dow or whatever else. But there's going to be a whole lot of people that are malinvested, that are situated for the big, like the people that make big shopping carts. Well, they'll go down to making smaller shopping carts again. But if you own the buildings that move massive amounts, for people to move massive amounts of goods through their goods, if you own many warehouses where people aren't paying the rent anymore and all that, you're stuck. You're going to be in trouble. So what part of the economy are you in? Another thing about being self-employed is you only have enough resources of yourself to get so far into a certain job, and you can only go so far, so you can't get beyond your own capabilities.
Everybody